Darktide has a very specific issue that no one talks about. An issue that, if not addressed, will affect the longevity of the game and tank its player retention, and I really would like to see more people talk about it. If you haven't watched my previous video talking about the balance of Tide games, I'd highly recommend you go watch that first, because I'll be referencing something I talked about in that video. But if you just want the TLDR, the Tide games are kept alive by its casual player base, and the number one thing that keeps casual gamers playing a game is a positive experience in quick play. If quick play is awful, the casual player base will be miserable and then they will leave, which would sentence a Tide game to an early grave, especially one like Darktide, which is currently struggling as is. Quick play in Darktide can be described as many things, but a positive experience is not always one of them. It's not exactly miserable, but it could easily get to that point if the problem with it remains unchecked while more and more features get added to the game. As it stands, the range of difficulty that you can quick play into in Darktide is too vast and random. Typically, variability in quick play is a good thing as it helps to keep the game interesting, but the difference in difficulty between the different modifiers in Darktide are too large, specifically the modifiers of low intensity, and high intensity shock troop gauntlet. From Malice and onwards, the difference between a low-intensity and normal game is not insignificant, and the difference between a low-intensity and high-intensity match is quite the leap. The difference in difficulty between a low-intensity and high-intensity shock troop gauntlet game, though, is staggering and is pretty much an entirely new difficulty within itself. In Vermintide, or any other Horde game really, when you queue up for a difficulty via quick play, you know exactly what you're getting into. Sure, sometimes there is some difficulty RNG between the AI director and maps, but it's always so minor that you will always have a solid grasp of what you're about to play. In Darktide, you have absolutely no idea. Someone who is comfortable in low intensity can get thrown into a high intensity shock troop game and get absolutely rocked, which is frustrating, while someone who is comfortable in high intensity shock troop could get thrown into a low intensity match, which is painfully boring. It's true that you can get a vague idea of what you'll quick play into by looking at the mission board, but it's not that helpful since you can quick play into existing games created from previous rotations, not to mention the current mission board causes people to just stop playing in general anyway. In my opinion, this issue is a pretty simple fix. Make 2 missions of each difficulty a guaranteed spawn of low intensity and high intensity so that people who want to play those modes can just play them. Then remove the ability to quick play into low intensity or high intensity missions unless you specifically opt into them. The other remaining missions can be any mixture of modifiers except low intensity and high intensity missions by themselves, since they will always be playable, which would allow for more interesting modifiers like high-intensity shock troop to spawn more often. As Fatshark begins to add more modifiers to the game, more instances of severe difficulty swings between modifiers could occur, which would slowly deteriorate the integrity of quick play, which is something that should be avoided at all costs. I, of course, would prefer if we could just choose the modifiers we play, but since that will more than likely never happen, the second best bet we have is to just remove problematic modifiers from the quick play pool and allow people to specifically choose to play those. I do agree this would cause issues with populating these modifiers, but considering how bad the state of mission select currently is, I don't see another way to fix this that Fatshark would realistically implement. If you have another solution though, leave it down in the comments below. See you next time!